Finally. Awesome. Very good.
This meeting is being recorded.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for jumping on the Leadership Equipping Workshop call here on September 19th, 2022. It's an exciting day, if only because it's a Monday and it's fall hours and it's exciting, right? So we're going to talk about credibility and compassion. Now, really, this kind of came to light within the last 24 to 36 hours. It's always interesting when I have an entirely different PowerPoint deck kind of put together for these calls, and then sort of last minute things shift in a way that I have to just kind of respond to it. And so what you're about to see is really the last little bit, last couple of days kind of put together, and hopefully it finds you well. You're able to look at it and really take something from it. So kind of moving through here, guys. Breaking news. And it's breaking through here. The breaking news is this, guys. Every first and third Monday, we're going to do this. We're going to do this 12 p.m. Central. That's now, right? 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So no big surprises there. Really, one of the big changes I want to kind of put into motion, and again, this could all change. Hopefully you guys are willing to be flexible with me as we kind of discover what this is all about. I really only want it to be about 30 to 45 minutes. I thought about maybe making this like every week, 30 to 45 minutes. And I'm like, what am I trying to accomplish here? Ultimately, I want there to be enough time and space for things to sort of marinate the things that we talk about when you're equipped with some of these areas of leadership, you're able to actually put them into motion on the week off between each of these calls. So it's scheduled for an hour time slot, but it's really only going to go 30 to 45 minutes tops. How I'd like to see it broken up is really 12 to 15 minute teachings and then a 15 to 25 minute discussion. Now, bear with me. I know even if I top out at a 15-minute teaching and a 25-minute discussion, that's 40 minutes. Just like I said, it's 30 to 45 minutes, gives us some intro time, some exit time as well. But the reality is, I know nobody wants to hear somebody speak for 40 minutes straight. I don't want to speak to you guys for 40 minutes straight. I think the power is in the discussion. And really, just after doing some studies and just kind of researching what is the maximum attention span of a group, it's really in that 12 to 15 minutes. And so I want to kind of keep it in that window and then do 15, 25 minutes discussion. Now, with that being said, the 12 to 15 minutes could be across the whole 30 to 45, much like today's discussion is going to be. There's going to be times where I break away and I allow other people to kind of speak, give a pro tip, sort of take over the call for a few minutes. And then I'll kind of resume control over the call. So that's kind of how this is going to go. We're not going to utilize this today, but in the future, I want to utilize breakout groups as it benefits us. I am going to create short worksheets to aid in equipping you guys, and then may even option a leadership equipping workshop chat on WhatsApp to facilitate discussion through the week off. Now, at the end of the day, this is an equipping call. And much like if I were to say, here's a sword, here's a shield, throw you into battle. Well, that's not much equipping, right? So here's a sword, here's a shield, here's what to do with said items. And then, yes, go out there and do some damage, hopefully, right? So that's kind of what we're looking to do on these week offs is practice and put things into motion that we're learning here on this call. So that's the breaking news for you. All right, you guys know this all too well. Sort of my cadence is, hey, be real, be right where you're at. This is a way to grow. New eyes, new ears. You've heard this before, maybe, but you may not have heard it the way it's being said today. And then actively engage. We only get somewhere if we move from theory to actually engaging one another on this call and learning from one another. As far as the vision goes, it's to create leaders of integrity that believe their words and actions must be connected, leaders of moral character that compassionately lead, leaders that grow and have the humility and heart to grow others. Leaders who have boundaries and responsibly fill out their spheres of authority and influence. Leaders that set and hold standards of unmatched quality. We're very intentional with Innovative Heights in creating leaders both for today and tomorrow. So I got to ask this question. Well, before I get there, this is something, a quote that I actually presented to you guys last time, and I think it's an important one at that. As a leader, if no one is behind you, then you are not a leader. That is, from a leadership standpoint, we have followers, right? They're the people that walk through our doors every day. They're called team members. They follow us. Assistant managers, right? You're following a GM. They're following myself, right? And so the reality is, as a leader, if no one is behind you, then you are not a leader. But here's the good news, and I mentioned this last time: leadership can be learned. All the debates about, natural leadership styles, yes, there's truth to some of that. But the reality is leadership can be learned, and that's what we're seeking to do here and accomplish here. And so here is that question I was going to ask, or really just a statement I wanted to throw out there. This is a quote from a park, and if this is you, be so bold to say, hey, that's me, right? You wave your hand in the air, even add to the chat. If you've done that before, please do that. But this is a quote from a park. We had a few call-offs. We've had that happen a couple times to us this past week. We're trying to figure it out. All right, so is that anybody here? That quote or a paraphrase of that quote?
Yep.
1000%.
Cody's like, yep. Who else said that? Who else?
And me, yeah, it's an issue we're having.
Yeah, some more than others, yes. Patrick Reese wrote, happens to us all. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Definitely. Said
There
that.
you go. Be so bold to say definitely. All right, all right. Yeah, I would hope you guys would say that. So that's every park at some point or another, right? And it's different for some parks are going to be more or less. That's about culture. That's about what we're trying to create. But at some point or another, we've dealt with this issue of we've had a few call-offs. We've had that happen a couple times to us this past week. We're trying to figure it out. In fact, in 5 of my parks, 4 out of 5 have vocalized this in the last week alone to me. And it's just sort of a passing remark. It's not even like the first time they've ever mentioned it. But it can feel every bit like a runaway train. And it was something that landed in such a way over the weekend in particular that I thought, we got to talk about this. This is a huge issue. We can't move ahead. We can't press ahead without figuring out this piece. Now, I would caution you, and this is just as much for me as it is for you. Whenever we're faced with a problem like this that includes people, there's a good chance there's not any one answer to this one problem. Because the variable is people and everyone is different. And so we have this one big problem. We don't have any one answer. But I would say it's important that, yes, we think like solution-based thinkers would. And really, it's more about the response coming from each of you in this room, more so than the answer to the problem, right? So we're looking for a response. How can we come at this in a way where we can grow? So the objectives for today, guys, we're going to grow in our credibility as leaders. We're going to talk about that today. That's important. We're going to learn how to lead with compassion, or at least start to talk about it further here. And then, as always, give you something you can use today, because outside of that, it's just theory. And we're in that 83% I talk about so often. Hey, we know there's a problem. We're even talking about the problem, but we fail to do anything about it. And that's the 5%, which we are. So that's how we'll maintain that. So beyond that, guys, let's define credibility. It's a big one, right? Define credibility. Well, credibility is, quite simply, it's the quality of being trusted and believed in. The quality of being convincing or believable. You can replace credibility with believability or just being trusted. Now, when I think about when I started working, which was a really long time ago, and I was 14 and I was a golf caddy, and then I was a dishwasher, so on and so forth. I had little odd jobs. Even with these odd jobs, 6 hours, 8 hours a week, whatever it was, I never wanted to call off. And I was thinking back as to what has changed. And now we can get into a whole study as to what's changed with how people see their jobs. And I can tell you right now, it's not because we're not paying them $20 an hour. It's not because we're not overstaffing and then cutting as we see fit. That's just going to demoralize our team. We can't do that. You've heard me say that before. And it's not because we're feeding them every day or paying for them to get to and from work. The reality is it comes down to a few things, I believe, and one of it's credibility. I knew then when I was young, a young guy, that I wanted to be trustworthy, believed in, even as a dishwasher. My role in the business mattered. And I had leaders that helped me know that. And so even when we're hiring, we need to be looking at what are we trying to accomplish and bringing them into the solution, not as the solution, but a part of the solution. It's about purpose, and it's helping them find their purpose within what we do every day. And it's credibility. It's the quality of being trusted and believed in. Now, in part, I would show up to my job because, well, for fear of, losing my job, that sort of thing. But it never came to that because I just showed up to work. I don't know if that's you. I could probably count on 3 hands. I think it would be a little over the top. At 14 years of age, I started, and I'm definitely much older than that now, to say on 2 hands, I can count how many times I've called off. But it's definitely in the teens, between family stuff going on to just not feeling well and I shouldn't be at work. I've maybe called off 3 hands worth, right? 13, 14 times in my entire life of work. I know that's not true for most people. Some of you are probably laughing to yourself. That's not even true for our team. We've probably had 14 call-offs in the past week or 2. Scary enough. So I look at that and think, what has changed? And I think ultimately, I wanted to be trusted in. I wanted to be believed in. I didn't want to let my team down. And I think that's a big part of this equation is when you believe you're part of something bigger than yourself, you don't want to let your team down. And that comes from leaders ahead of you, even if they're just a step ahead of you, really impacting you in such a way that they show you how you play a bigger part in that bigger picture, even if it's a small part that you currently play. So credibility is super important. And that's something we got to grow in on our end as leaders. Here's a great quote, and you may believe in what this guy believes in or not. He's a very, very well-known pastor of a church, I believe, out in California. His name is Rick Warren. And we're not talking about his ideology, his theology, whatever. But this quote means something to me because the proof's in the pudding. The most essential quality for leadership is not perfection, but credibility. People must be able to trust you. Now, Rick Warren is a guy who started off with 6 people in his apartment and now has 40,000 followers, so to speak, in his denomination or in his churches, 19 campuses on 4 different continents. He started small and he's gone big. There's something to that. The most essential quality for leadership is not perfection, but credibility. I've never followed, or I very rarely have followed anybody I could not trust. And so we got to grow trust with our people. And that's not an easy feat. It's not enough to say, I'm the GM, I'm the manager, listen to me. We have to build credibility. So going beyond that, guys, I'm going to ask the question, and now is a great time to enter into the chat, either unmute yourself or and be so bold to do that. That would be amazing. But you are here for a reason. We're on this call for a reason. What is one way you can build credibility with your team as a leader? What's one way you can build credibility even today on a Monday? And feel free to add your voice.
So when given any one of our team members a task at all, we even talked about this last week in the call where giving a task and you follow up, you're giving your own self, your own credibility, and you're giving the credibility to your team members to where you're entrusted them with a job and you're following up on them. And then that also let them know is like, well, if I'm doing a job, then I know that my manager's going to follow up on that. And at that same time, you're also giving yourself in that credibility in the sense that it's like you trust your team members enough to know that they're going to get the job done and you're going to eventually look over their work.
Yeah, that is awesome. And Stefan, I love having you on the line here. I love having you on the call. It's awesome. Very good. We've been missing your voice. Appreciate that. Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak up. So for my team specifically, I mean, I've just noticed that, just kind of how he just said, anytime, they're given a task, they take that with pride because they know that like you're believing in them and you're trusting in them to do it. So one thing that I always do when I administer the task is I always say, hey, can you get this done for me? I know I can rely on you to get it done, which kind of starts off of them like, feeling that sense of pride of, oh, she believes in me, I'm going to do a good job. And then of course the follow-up is always important. But so the way that we do it here is each of my team leads, I try to give them like a sense of power and authority and credibility by each having their own task and something that they own is theirs. So like the break room is someone's ownership. The glow closet is someone's ownership. The fuel zone area, party rooms, let me turn around, and the chemical closet. So they know whenever they come in for their shifts, I mean, that's that's their baby. That's what they own, and that's what they handle weekly. And some of them even will get so excited about their job well done, they'll send me pictures of it if I'm not here, like, hey Hannah, I got the chemical closet done, how do you think about it? One of my team leads that has the break room, this past week she's put together an inspiration board for it, and like put like, we're the Smurfs, so she's got all these Smurf pictures and like inspirational quotes and stuff. So I don't know, it's just really shown through Murfreesboro that when they're given these tasks, they really own them and they take pride in them. So
that's phenomenal. And honestly, that builds into my pro tip with Hannah. So there you go. It's like you're picking up what I'm putting down, Hannah. Yeah, I saw that in your park, and I've seen that and I've seen it in some other parks, but it was really pronounced in your park. It was my first experience in your park back when Seville and Devin were training there, and yeah, it was like even the glow closet, or the closet with all glow shirts, right? You're like, someone owns this, and it's like a small area of the business, but there's ownership in it, right? They're part of the team, and there's so many moving parts and pieces. And you said it best earlier when we were talking. It's delegation, right? It's just delegation, and it's been, did you say a lifesaver for you, right? I mean, it's been a lifesaver.
Because, I don't have time to worry about the break room getting busy, or the glow closet getting destroyed after a Friday or Saturday, getting glow tubs. We all have 10,000 things to do. So not only is a lifesaver for us, but it also builds credibility with your team. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. No, and that's great. Some other individuals here, Patrick with be consistent, show up when you say you will, trust but verify. That's huge. Absolutely. Hold team members to our standards is from Michael, and hold them accountable. Make sure they know our standards. Yeah, guys, empowering your people. Really, this is awesome. It's the little things that can be the bigger things too, right? How else will we know when we trust them with little, right? We trust them with the small things, then we can build on to things down the road. So yeah, so that was, again, perfect segue into this, Hannah, just with just pro tip, right? Getting work done through others. That is management 101, right? If you've been on the leadership 101 call, which most of you have, if you haven't, please jump on those calls when Wade has those available. They're incredible. They're great. But leaders, one of the things that we do is we influence, and it's really directed influence, even if it's over small things. And so one of our goals from the very beginning of these calls was to develop leaders at the ground level, really leaders of self. And that's something that we need to continue to do, and do intentionally. So leaders of self is one of our primary initiatives. And how do you do that? Well, giving them little tasks, and you're empowering them, and you're following up with them, and they're part of that thing called the team, and there's trust going both ways. Awesome. Anyone else have anything to add to credibility at this point? Awesome. Believability, trust. You can get nothing done. I can't imagine anybody. I've always had to have trust with my people to get anything done. Period. I mean, I need, within my fold, I need Patrick, Stephanie, Devin, Seville, Tyler, and I know for a fact they need Cody, Aaron. I'm gonna miss some people. Ashley, Krista, Tian, so on and so forth. I mean, Shannon, right? We need each other. Like, as a team, we need one another. And that's only speaking of the 5 parks that I'm overseeing, right? So it's a sense of team, it's empowerment, it's trust. This is something that I had at the GM conference as one of my slides. I thought it was a great quote from the late, great Miles Monroe, a great man of leadership. He said, the highest form of true leadership is seeing someone through to who they were designed to be. And I think that that's really important to remember. He also said this: it's not about control, but service. It's that servant's heart, service leadership, knowing that, hey, they're willing to go through the things that they're asking of me. It's not about power, but empowerment. That's a huge one. Especially when power is thrown around so often, it's actually about empowering other individuals. And it's not about manipulation, but inspiration. And I think that's a really good one as well. So kind of moving on, guys, what is the difference between leading or manipulation? Because honestly, I think there's a lot of people who kind of say, hey, we might look and go, well, they're a great leader. But if we looked a little further, we might just find out they're really good at manipulating the circumstances. So leading and manipulating uses a lot of the same muscles, and even gives us somewhat of a similar result, but the heart of it's different. And one has a future that's leading. Manipulation, well, it's gonna lend itself to short-term gains and long-term losses. So what is the difference between leading or manipulation when it comes to a team?
I would say that manipulation is there's a I win component to it, whereas leadership is a we win component. And that's the main difference. And you might be able to get by as a manipulator for a little bit, but eventually people are going to catch on and say, wait, this person only cares about themselves. And then that goes back to what you said at the beginning, Lance, that if nobody's following you, then you're not a leader. So a manipulator might be able to look like a leader temporarily, but in the long term, they're going to be outed and they're going to turn around at some point and nobody's going to be behind them.
That's awesome. So safe to say manipulation is tied back to me versus leading is about we.
Yep.
Awesome. I just threw that up in the chat. Great job. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? And that's well said. Anybody else want to take a shot at it? I've seen lots of manipulation before in my years of working. Individuals who, through relationships, right, they try to manipulate. And sometimes it's not so outward as like, well, they're manipulating somebody. But you know, they're doing the whole emotional thing. They're trying to tug on the heartstrings. They're making it about themselves, like, oh, you're gonna let me down, or right. And a lot of times we just see that as leading through relating, but it's actually a form of manipulation. It's leaning on not being a strong leader, but you're manipulating the circumstances to fit ultimately what you're trying to accomplish. Excellent. So pro tips with Devin, and Devin, you just went and you just spoke very candidly to this and very well. But if you don't mind, I mean, you and I were talking a little bit about your experience in Murfreesboro, that first go around, or the only go around, right? And how you kind of incorporated some things when you got back to your park. Now, for those that don't know, or maybe you do, in my area of the woods, I have 5 parks. North region here. And again, it's great to know that everyone has call-offs, because at some point you just think it happens to be the Great Lakes State and America's Dairyland having these issues, but it's not in the waters of Lake Michigan where our issues are. We're having those issues everywhere. And, you know, I've actually brought on 4 GMs in 3 months at Innovative Heights here in the northern region. We've had 4 GMs brought on between June, July, and August. Kind of crazy. I only have 5 parks, so 4 out of 5 there, and 4 were in 3-month period. But wanted to just kind of let Devin kind of speak to you. How was it when he stepped into his park? Now, he had good, stable, and consistent leadership with Shannon in the fold, and he adopted a park from a good GM who had to turn things around when he walked through the doors last December, I believe. But the reality is it was still a new park to him, and he had to build credibility with his team and really create a sense of, we are Grand Rapids. We are the Grand Rapids Slayers. So if you don't mind speaking to that a little bit, Devin, just your time at Murfreesboro, just some of the things we talked about earlier, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so when we went to Murfreesboro, that was one of the things that impressed me the most about Hannah's park, was that, you know, it really was, her job is to just make sure things are that standard was being held, but everybody else was carrying out, like she said, the break room, making sure that was being taken care of. And they had a board where they had all of this written down so people knew what their responsibility was. And then so that's how I operate. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I want to do that. But then when we got to the park, it was kind of like, you kind of realize that there wasn't really people that were ready for that. And sometimes you can put people into positions where they're not ready, and then they end up failing. And then their complaint is, well, I don't have the support that I need to be able to do that. So what we kind of did in our park, Shannon and I were talking a lot about, you know, a lot of the stuff was falling back onto our plates. So things that other people said they wanted to do weren't being done to the standard they needed to be. So when I came in, the first thing I realized was, like, there was a lot of work to do from like a cleanliness perspective. So I was doing it. I went and, you know, we power washed stuff and, you know, spent a lot of time doing that. And one of the managers who just left under good terms. He said, we had a conversation one day and he was like, I really didn't want to like you, but you came in here and did so much of this work that you didn't play a part in creating, in terms of the mess. He's like, you didn't play any part in creating it, but you were ready to do it. You never complained. And he's like, so it was impossible for me to sit here and not like you. He's like, you came in ready to work. So I tried to do that early on. I mean, I spent probably the first 3 weeks just cleaning. And now that we've gotten rid of a lot of our workers that, you know, Lance always talks about it, coach them up over coaching out, but there were people that needed to be coached out. And we've gotten rid of, I think we had 5 people that I terminated 30 days in. And then we've had, within the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had 3 or 4 managers that have left. And the funny thing about it is that you would think that would be this awful thing, but Shannon and I have kind of been like relieved. And we've been using this as an opportunity for people to take that next step. So we've been assigning people tasks, kind of taking from Hannah's mold, like, hey, this is something we'd like you to do. Yeah, we know you're here to be a court monitor today. It's slow. We're going to pull you off. We're going to let you do this instead. And then we're going up and following up with them to make sure that it was done correctly. And the people that are doing things correctly are the people that we're looking at for our leads and manager positions. So we've already talked to a couple people like, hey, you've done a great job with these tasks. And we're going to bump you up because of that. You're doing exactly what we need you to do. So we kind of looked at, with all the resignations, we looked at doing like a reset, and using our team meeting that we held last Monday as our kind of kickoff for that. So we had kind of broke down everything that all the different, you know, the Innovative Heights, the Northern Region Pride, the groups that we're a part of, and how those identities and the 12 systems and all of those things that have been implemented make us what our team name is, the Grand Rapids Slayers. So we kind of talked about that, and it was a kind of a great conversation. Like, people really liked, like, they looked at our logo and we incorporated an eagle into it, and they're like, what's the eagle for? And it was like, well, because we're Innovative Heights. And we explained that, and it was like a fun, and everybody was like involved in the conversation. I've spoken in front of enough teams to know when people aren't listening, and you could tell like people were engaged. So we did a bunch of activities. We broke everybody up, and kind of said, look, we're going to train you so that you'll be really good at something. So like a court monitor, sales, events, and then we're going to cross train you in something else. And if you continue to do a great job at the role that you're taking on, well, then you'll be the one of those people that we're looking at for promotions down the line. So I was actually going to let Shannon speak too, and see if there's something she would like to add, since she's been an integral part of our park and has really couldn't have done this without her. She's been fantastic. So there was one story that happened last week with one of our people we're looking at for a lead, Z, that I think would be a great story for her to share with everyone.
Yeah, so this was like right after our team meeting, like that weekend after. And that week, like I hadn't had time to like make the folders for all the birthday parties. And she came into the office, asked if she wanted me to make them for the rest of the weekend, and then offered to come in like every week to make the sheets and the folders, which I thought was wonderful. I've never gotten like somebody like to offer to help me with that kind of stuff. And I just thought that it showed that she was like ready to take on more tasks and more opportunities, and was like excited about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And so much there, Devin. I mean, there's so much there, and I appreciate the share. And, you know, you mentioned coaching up versus coaching out. Yes, I say that a lot. They use the same muscles, really, right? The up and the out is dependent on the individual on the other end of it, right? So coaching is coaching. Obviously, we know we take a different tone depending on where things are heading, whether they're being coached up or coached out, but it's the same muscles. And then a lot of what you guys discussed there, and again, just a great job on your team member meeting. You had sent over the notes, just phenomenal job, is really tied back to being intentional. And short little fun story, but I was with our RBA last week, John LeMay, and as was Wade, and America's Dairyland, and probably within the first hour or so of me in front of them, maybe it was a little bit longer than that, I don't know. It was a little longer than that because we were at dinner finally, and I said the word intentional, and he kind of laughed. He said, "You guys really like that word," and I said, "Well, you know, it's something that we're every bit intentional about." Because as we look to do, it's not enough to just do in response or being reactive, right? There's actually a level of, we're very targeted, we're honed in on what we're trying to accomplish, and so we're doing things with intention. We see the end game, and we are doing the things we need to do right now so that we can be successful for the future. So it's why we do things like sell ices, so that we can sell a holiday gift card better, so we can move a punch pass better, right? We're working skills, we're developing things each and every day, so that we can build to where we ultimately want to go. Excellent share. Thank you, Devin. I appreciate it. And thank you, Shannon. Always great hearing your voice too. All right. 3 reasons why employees show up. I'll move through this pretty quickly. The work is meaningful to them. What a surprise. They actually want to feel like they're part of something. The work is meaningful to them. If you're not hiring people who don't like working with kids, they don't like what we do, they can't find that one of our core values, make it fun, is actually to, well, make it fun, then they're probably not the right person for the job. In fact, I would say they're not. Goals and expectations are well communicated and consistent. That's clear expectations. They want to know how to win. They want to know what winning looks like. It's our jobs as leaders to show, hey, this is what a great and clean park looks like. This is what a great and fun park looks like. So on and so forth, right? So we want to show them ultimately what a great park is. And that's goals and expectations are well communicated and consistent. They have control, meaning they have some level of skill, training, and influence over outcomes. They want to know how what they do matters in our business on any given day. You may say, no, my people don't. They just want to show up and make $20 an hour, which we're not paying. I would just counter that. Any team I've ever been in front of that is doing great things, it's always tied back to these 3 main things as to why they show up. Why they show up and why they look to do a great job. Moving into compassionate leadership, guys. This is a quote from the one, the only, the Albert Einstein. He had this to say, and he's a brainy guy at that, so he knows somewhat what he's talking about, I believe. Compassionate people are geniuses, said by a genius himself, in the art of living, more necessary to the dignity, security, and joy of humanity than the discoverers of knowledge. Huge. Compassionate people are geniuses in the art of living. I would go on a little further, guys. Talk about leading with compassion. Brene Brown, she's a researcher at heart. She's done just crazy amounts of studies and research overall as to what really makes people tick, what makes people move. And she's been in the front of many CEOs and many big time decision makers in many big businesses, and has been sort of their consult. One of the things that she's realized through her line of work, it's these 2 things are always connected. And it's this: the 2 most powerful forms of connection are love and belonging. They are both irreducible needs of men, women, and children. And the picture here is of a bunch of people collectively together in a movie theater crying at some sort of sappy rom-com or something, right? But they're crying and they're together. And at the end of the day, love and belonging is something that we give as leaders. And yeah, love is kind of taboo. We don't talk about that so much in the business world. But the reality is we're making connections every day. We're trying to manage alongside, not against our people. At least that's the hope. And so those 2 things must come together day in, day out. And so there's something we want to strive for. Vulnerability is another thing that Brene Brown talks quite a bit about, and actually has seen this as really the source of courage in the workplace. It's the center. It's the heart of all meaningful human experiences is vulnerability. We ought to be leading in such a way that we're connecting life to life. Again, that's what we do every day, or we run the risk of this business just being about, hey, go hire another 30 people. Doesn't matter who they are. Well, no, let's have the right people. Let's hire with the end in mind. Let's be intentional about who we bring into the fold and what we're trying to accomplish. So I got to ask the question, what are ways that you can show compassion to your team? What are some ways you can show compassion as a leader?
One thing,
Well,
when they,
go ahead.
when they come in every day, I want to know about their day, about them, about their week. Literally about, instead of just Sky Zone focused, at some point during their day, I'm finding out about how their week went. And I don't want to just have a, like, how was your week? Oh, it was good or it was bad. Like, I want to know a little detail. So I'll ask a question. What was one good thing about your week, or what made it good? What made it bad? Just so that there's that, there's that breakdown, the breakdown of the wall that, people tend to put up. That to me is really huge. In addition to that, like training to their learning style, like actually finding out how they learn and training that way and teaching them from that place. It's like all that stuff played together or put together, just, it makes a difference with people.
Yeah, it shows your vested interest in them as a leader.
Mhm.
You're realizing they're not just an automaton in the greater system that is called Sky Zone, in your case, Shelby Township. You're not just another body, that's on the roster. You mean something to the team. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate the share. Anyone else?
Well, especially I know from my shifts, what I try to do is, since we work primarily with kids, obviously, especially with me being younger, I feel like I can relate to them on certain things, just even outside of work. So whether that's just home, school, or anything like that. So same thing, like I want to know what's going on in their life. I want to invest in them because I know that if I'm investing in them, their outside life, they can give me the same thing in return here. At least they can have like an escape at work, which makes them want to come to work, actually do work, and actually be focused here at work. One thing that is in our training binder, where we have an open door policy here at Madison, we really adhere to that. We adhere to the open door policy. We want to know what's going on inside the park, outside the park, at home, because all we know is like that's just going to affect work here. And we prefer it not to affect work here. So as soon as they come in and clock in, we already ask, yo, what's going on? How's your day? What's like little stuff like that, just to get them engaged and just get them open to share to us. Because then at that point, once they cross back out that threshold of that door, they're already ready to work. They already know it's like, all right, I'm comfortable now. Whatever happened at school earlier, that was earlier, this is now. So that's just the mindset we go into with, especially my shifts alone too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you for the share. Yeah, wherever you can create and increase the level of predictability in the day, and in a world of high variables, because we deal with the guest experience, we deal with things like incidents, so on and so forth. We deal with power outages, whatever it may be. Wherever you can create some measure of predictability and set people up, managing the expectations, huge. It's huge. And it does show compassion. It shows that you care. Getting your schedule published in time for your people to be able to plan out their lives a week from now, it's a big deal. So there's little things we can do, little things we can tweak to just show compassion, to show that we care. Awesome. Anyone else on the compassion piece?
Yeah, I'll kind of add to it too. So like what Stefan said, so we do that during the shifts too, but we also make it a point to say that to the employees during their interview. So like we do all of like the interview, we do after we do the orientation process, if we decide that we want to hire them, we kind of let them know like, hey, even if that office door is shut, like it's an open door policy. Like we're here for anything, whether it's relationship advice, home advice, school advice. If you need help with work, obviously that's what we're here for too, but like we're here for you. We're not just here for the business, we're here for you too. So we kind of make that a point during the orientation first. That way they know like, hey, these are people that we can talk to too. So not just work related.
Amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. Gosh, you guys had me wanting to be 16 again. I want to go work out in Madison. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Patrick wrote, and I know he's feeling a little under the weather, so I won't let you, I'll just say it for you because I know you might cough or something, and hopefully you're on the mend, you're getting better. Patrick wrote, get to know them so that you can also see what you could help equip them with. Utilize their strengths and help them work on their opportunities so that they can look back on this experience glowingly. That's something I do try to do. All right. Used to do quite often as a GM. I always say, like, I know you're probably not going to be here for many, many years to come. There's only so many slots for that sort of thing. But the reality is, I want them to look fondly at this experience. I want them to go, this was probably the best job I ever had. And I learned a lot about how to work at, say, that career job that they end up at right down the road. I always want to be a part of, in a way, you know, a positive impact on them for the years to come versus, say, a negative experience where we didn't set them up for success, but for failure. All right, guys, bringing up the rear. Pro tip, Stephanie, I wanted to have you talk a little bit about, again, you're one of my 4 GMs that came on in a 3-month span. You know, so if you can kind of quickly talk through sort of what you've been doing with your team from a development standpoint, because you're building credibility by showing what you know, but you're showing compassion by flexing to their learning style. And I know you've done a lot of that because training's in your heart. So can you just give me just a high level view of how your day-to-day has been going with training your team?
Training my team has been getting to ground level with them, like many of the other GMs. There's a lot of T-slap, of course, but there's a lot of, well, I know that, you know, you haven't been shown properly how to do the bathrooms. Let's go together. I know it's terrible. Let's go together. Let's get the bathroom done. That way you're going to learn. You're also going to have some help doing it. And that's going for everywhere around the building. And then after that, of course, there's the follow-up as we go, because they've already been shown. They've already had that hand-to-hand moment with me. There is, and that's kind of going for, I could say that's for almost everywhere in this park right now. Everybody's getting that hip to hip with Stephanie. We're going to learn how to do everything. And this is how we're going to do it, whether it's front counter, whether it's the bathrooms, as I said, whether it's fixing springs. You're getting that hip to hip training. And if you are more of a visual learner, I tweak it a little bit. I always ask, what is your learning style? Tell me how you learn best so that I can, you know, we can maneuver around that.
That's awesome. And again, there's the intentionality. So very good. Very good. Spot on. Kind of along those veins as we bring up the rear of this discussion, guys. I showed this at the GM convention, so it won't be as surprising for the GMs on the line, but for others, this is a share I wanted to get in front of you guys. How people learn, transferring a new skill into their jobs. Interesting enough, if you just give someone a theory, here's a theory on leadership. You're going to be the 83%, but you're only going to have 5% retention of bringing that into your day-to-day where it matters, because you just have a theory. If you give them a theory and you give them a demonstration of said theory, it's a 10% retention that's brought into behavior, brought into action day in, day out. If you give them a theory with a demonstration and practice during their training, it's a 20%. So there's increase. It's good increase, but it's not where we want to be. Theory, demonstration, practice during training, and corrective feedback during the training. I think the key piece is it's all in training is 25%. But watch this. If we give a theory, we give the demonstration, we practice during the training, we give corrective feedback during training, and in situation coaching training, when it matters, when the heat's on, when the stress is coming down, when they're in the trenches and it's warfare, if you're alongside them, hip to hip, like Stephanie said, managing alongside them versus against them, it's a 90% transfer. And who doesn't need that 90% with your new hires? We do a great job, and we're only getting better at bringing culture into the fold. Great orientations, hiring right, not in that order, of course. Hiring right, then doing great orientations and onboarding. But beyond that, it's the day-to-day in the trenches with one another that we need to be doing this last bullet point to a T, because that's how we're going to grow our team. That's how we're going to reproduce ourselves as leaders when it counts. And right now it's a slow September, and even everyone felt that this last weekend was a little bit busier for the time of year, right? So as we go into this fourth quarter, we need to have the best teams in place, and that's going to take us doing something about it right now. So guys, talking about doing something right now, what are you taking from this call? Where are you going to be intentional on being more compassionate? Maybe that's the area. Maybe it's being more credible with your leaders. Or maybe it's just doing things a little differently on the training and development side with your team members, both old and new. But what are you taking from this call please add it in the chat. Or you can go ahead and unmute your mic. I'd love to hear from a couple of you as we round the corner and finish things out.
There's the credibility piece. I wasn't at a position where I had different leaders and emerging leaders, but I am now, and I'm saying, well, who can I give what? So I'm going to be sitting down, setting out what leaders I have and what they're going to have ownership of, even of the littlest things like the break room, as Hannah said, the glow shirts, just little things like that are going to make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I saw Devin wrote earlier along those lines, Lance. I always tell our new hires, think about how this job can help you get where you want to be in life. And I think that's part of our job as leaders, to define that further. Because on the surface, well, I'm working at a trampoline park. I plan to work at Google or whatever it is they want to do. I'm going to be in the hospital system, whatever they're looking to do. I think it's really important that we say, okay, well, these people skills transfer. Being to work on time transfers. I was in 3 out of 5 of my parks, home-based messaging over the weekend. I think some of the leaders on here can recognize I was in your home base and I was messaging. Sometimes I was echoing certain points made by managers. Sometimes I was just kind of running point for them where I needed to. But it was my time to kind of influence, lead where I could, even through home base. And I think some were surprised that I got in there and I messaged some things back. Because there were some things happening that shouldn't have been happening on a corporate or a company, in this case, communication line. And I got in there and I kind of said my part, because as leaders, if we walk past a fallen standard or we swipe through a fallen standard, that becomes a new standard. And so I couldn't just let it go. But those are little things we can do to make big changes down the road. What else are you taking back from this call? See, Patrick wrote, work the little things, the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen. Absolutely. It's a small rudder that turns a big ship, right? Little things. They matter. For Murfreesboro, for me, helping not only my leaders feel that credibility and empowerment, but even my court monitors and sales associates as well. They're valued. They matter. There's a big difference between someone who doesn't do a great job court monitoring and someone who does a great job. There's a massive difference, actually. It's huge. Tyler gives me ideas on what to bring to the team in the park. It's good to hear different perspectives from other leaders about different things that work in a leadership perspective. Absolutely. Great stuff. All right. Well, I hope that you bring something from this call. We've talked about a lot. Compassionate leadership, not to be confused with the warm and fuzzies. But the reality is, this is a people business. If you haven't gotten that down yet, we're all people in this business trying to do great things within the Innovative Heights Network, and you're all a big part of that. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. What are you taking from this call? Hopefully something, and we'll talk about it the next time when we're in front of each other. Bringing up the rear, guys. Last but not least, next call is going to be October 3rd. Can't believe it. Top of 4th quarter. Topic is to be decided, but it's probably going to be the one I worked on for the last handful of days before I got to this one instead. It's probably going to be on boundaries and belief systems. So stay tuned for that, but it could change just like this one did. Thank you, guys. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have an awesome week.
Bye. Thank you.
Good week, guys.